Okay, welcome. My name is John Golden. I'm President and CEO of Huthwaite, and I'm delighted today to be here with Neil Rackham, who is indeed the founder of Huthwaite, the author of Spin Selling, and one of the most sought after sales consultants and speakers in the world today. So welcome, Neil.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And congratulations on your recent doctorate that was awarded to you about a month ago, I think.
Oh, yes, yes. With a funny hat and silly robes and things. It was wonderful.
So as you travel around the world extensively, you're making speeches and talking to people, what are some of the messages that you're hearing and the things that you're hearing from business leaders that are similar regardless of where you go?
Well, I think the first thing is it was always said that if there's a recession in America, if America sneezes, the rest of the world gets a cold. The rest of the world probably has swine flu at the moment. I was in Chile yesterday, and one of the things that was very, very clear there is that, like many, many other economies, is deeply down. In fact, I think the only exception at the moment is India, which has such a strong internal economy that you don't see anything very different. But in most countries, this is the big one.
So the recession is even deeper and more global in nature than previous recessions. So is your advice about selling in hard times the same, or has it changed for this particular recession?
I think there are some differences, but fundamentally good selling is good selling. So it doesn't matter too much whether we're talking about good times or bad. In bad times, you just have to be more skillful. You have to be more focused, and yet those are exactly the same things which would help you in good times as well.
So a lot of people are obviously suffering from acute price pressure, as they always do when markets turn down. And obviously it's even more acute this time around. So what advice would you have for people to mitigate against that price conversation?
Well, I think we can learn a lot from what happened in the last big global recession, which was in the 1980s. There, most companies felt that the real issue was price. They were being pressured by customers on price, price, and price. There was one company worldwide which stood out against that, and that was IBM. IBM products in the 80s were underfeatured and overpriced. And where competitors were making cuts of something like 30%, IBM actually increased prices on key lines. Because what IBM sold was not price, but safety. I mean, you may remember the old marketing slogan of IBM in the 80s was, nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM. That's about safety, it's not about price. The result was that whereas competitors cut and went out of business, no one's heard today of Burroughs, Unisys, or DEC. Major companies have all gone. IBM increased its margins, increased its profitabilities, and had some of its best years in history because what it sold was safety, not price. So essentially, in hard times, people would rather make the safe decision than the cheap decision. And we have to train our salespeople to be able to project the idea that we are the safe pair of hands. If you can do that, you can really survive.
Are there any specific mistakes that you see salespeople making, particularly in this market?
The first one is that in any sale, there's some element of negotiation, as Huthwaite knows full well with all the work you do in the negotiating area. But every piece of research shows that the most effective salespeople negotiate very late in the sales process. Unfortunately, when times are hard, people tend to negotiate much earlier. When you negotiate early, you not only reduce your margins, but you create suspicion in customers. You make them feel that if you're negotiating from meeting one, you're going to give even more concessions than you would otherwise give, and you actually reduce your chances of getting the business. So helping people negotiate late rather than get into premature negotiation is tremendously important.
So given the fact that over the last number of years, during the boom years, a lot of people have been very successful selling who may not actually have had the fundamental selling skills because it's been a high demand, easy budget, people know what they want. So now that that has all changed, do you think that spin is more applicable and more relevant than ever?
Yes, because good selling matters. There were so many people, the people who I call talking brochures, who thought their job was just go out and show what a great product we had. Those people succeeded moderately, not really well, but moderately when times were good, because there were customers ready to buy and they could cream off some of those customers. But now we live in times where unless the salesperson can create a lot of customer value, the customer's not going to buy. Then that takes skill. And salespeople without skill are dying like flies right now. And the hardest thing for most companies is to find good salespeople who can handle these hard times as smoothly as they handle the good times.
So it's always very tempting when there's a downturn in the market for people to sit around and just wait for the market to turn again and think that, okay, when the market turns, everything will go back to normal and I'll be okay. But history has taught us that when markets go through a convulsion and a cycle like this, they come out very different from how they were before. So what impact do you think that's going to have on the salesperson of the future?
Mm-hmm. I think there are two things. One is this recession is not just going to go away. All the indicators I see as I travel around the world is it's at the least going to be a slow recovery and a rather long recovery. But the other thing, that you start off saying, people can't just sit around. But I think in that, there's one of the mistakes people make when times are hard. And that is, when times are hard, people get active, they get energetic, they knock on more doors, they try to open up more opportunities. It seems the right thing to do. But the evidence is that that's not what the best people do. That the people who are most successful are the ones who focus. In fact, I have a rule, and my rule would be this. If you wouldn't chase a piece of business in good times, never chase it in bad times. See, that's not just a question of selling skill, that's a question of the whole management approach to thinking about their sales effort. Don't go for activity. Coming out of the recession, the people who will win are the ones who choose the best opportunities and they over-resource them. If you can get people doing that, it will help them move out of these recessive times. Because I think they're going to be longer than the optimists have predicted, maybe not quite so bad as the worst of the pessimists have said, but it's going to be a long, hard one, and it will make all the difference if people have the right strategies and the right skills.
So as you talk to business leaders and advise them, what advice are you giving them about how to position themselves best for the recovery, when it comes or however long it takes? What advice are you giving them?
I think the first piece of advice is now is probably the best time for the last 20 years for recruiting good people. You're not going to make a great boom in sales right now, but if you've got pockets deep enough to ride it, now's the best time to get talented and creative people. They are more mobile than ever before. They can be attracted in, and the price premium isn't anything like as high as it used to be. So staff up with good people would be my first piece of advice. After all, sales is unique, In almost any other area, a top performer may perform 5% better or 10% better than an average performer. In the average major sales force, the top performer, the top 10%, are outselling the bottom 10% by a factor that nearly always exceeds 3 to 1. If you can get more of that top 10% into your sales force, it's a very good growth strategy for getting out. Now's a good time to employ it. The other thing is redeploy your resources. Look hard at the kind of business you want to win. Get marketing and sales to work together to identify where are the segments where we could really make an inroad. What are the individual opportunities we should chase? If you can do that, you can do very well climbing out of this recession faster than your competitors will ever do.
So if there was one area that you would have sales leaders really focus on right now, what area would that be?
I think the first thing is it takes a cool head. A sales leader cannot panic. One of the things which tends to happen is when there's panic at a senior management level, it's amazing how that transmits itself down to customers. Sales managers become more anxious. They pressure their salespeople more, salespeople pressure customers, and the whole thing cascades. Remember that I was saying earlier, selling safety is much more important than selling price. How does a salesperson make a customer feel this is a safe decision? It's more than anything a matter of confidence. Helping the customer feel we know where we're going, we're steady, we're professional, we're not panicking. So if I had one piece of advice to give senior management, it would be make in your behavior and the behavior of sales managers, make it clear that we are riding this one out by thought, by strategy, and not just by panic and by activity.
So as a behavioral psychologist, I mean, you know how people operate and the way they think and behave, both buyers and sellers. So what would be your advice for somebody trying to make their next big sale and alternatively somebody looking to make their next big purchase?
I'd say in each case, the crucial thing today is that there's been a transformation which the recession has rather overlaid so we don't notice how big the transformation was. The role of the salesperson's fundamentally changed. And it's not changed in a way that matches the changes in purchasing. Purchasing has become unimaginably more focused, more professional in the last 10 or 15 years. Sales still has a way to go. Purchasers are demanding, quite rightly, salespeople who don't waste their time, salespeople who've got something useful to say. In other words, salespeople who can create customer value. We live in an era where the products don't cut it. Your product isn't sufficiently different from that of your competitors to just get the business for you. The salesperson adds as much value and sometimes more value than the product. So the advice I would give to salespeople is understand that you are a value creator, not a value communicator. Develop with customers a deep understanding of their problems and issues. And of course, as Huthwaite's research and other research over the last 40 years has shown over and over and over again, down at that tactical level, you do it by asking good questions to really understand customers. Because selling today is not about persuasion, it's about understanding.
So Neil, would you still recommend sales as a good career for people to get into?
Well, I think it is for a couple of reasons. If you'd asked me 15 or 20 years ago, in fact, many young, ambitious MBAs used to ask me that when I was teaching on MBA programs, should I go into sales? I'd say no. Go into finance, go into marketing, because those were the people who were making the impact. But there has been a fundamental change in what makes impact in terms of a company's growth. 20 years ago, a company used to grow by becoming more efficient internally. It was the era of efficiency. You'd introduce processes, you'd slim it down, you'd bring in quality. But all those things have been done. So then we entered the era of acquisition, where CEOs grew by acquiring another company. So if you acquire a company half your size, your sales have gone up 50%. And so acquisition became the way to be a rock star CEO. Well, there's no capital for acquisition now, and many people are very skeptical about it. So now we're entering the era of organic growth. And companies are growing by working to take business from their competitors, bringing marketing and sales together. And that means that marketing and sales have become very important functions. In the last year, I've had 3 firms of major headhunters come to me and ask if I could recommend a CEO for a Fortune 500 company who has a background in sales. That's not happened to me before. So I think we're entering a new era where sales and marketing become the way in which companies are going to grow. And so few senior executives know enough about selling. And I think there's a wonderful career opportunity for smart, ambitious people in sales today.
So in conclusion, what's the final piece of advice that you would have for people out there who are desperately looking for some nuggets of wisdom as they wait for this market to turn around?
Mm-hmm. I think I'd put it very simply: over-resource your best opportunities. You get no prize for coming in second. The crucial thing is, if you're going to invest in trying to build a customer today, it's going to be a big investment, and you want to make sure you're going to win. And you do that by thinking, by strategizing, by choosing the opportunity where you think you have the best chance of winning. Remember what I was saying earlier: if you wouldn't chase the business in good times, never chase it in bad. Choose your best opportunities and put twice the effort into half the opportunities, and you'll win. And that's what you need to do.
Well, thanks, Neil. It's been a real pleasure talking with you this morning, and
Well,
look
thank you,
forward
John.
to talking to you again soon.
Yes, thank you.